Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey, everybody. It is your good friend, Dr. David Perrodin from down here in the historic North Star Recording Studio. Wishing you well. And so it's been a while since I've done a show. I am very shiny in this lighting, although I'm not as shiny in person, so I'm not sure. But want to give a shout out there to our friend Solitude, Ron, and Andrew. Hope you're doing well. So it's been a while since the show. So let me tell you what is going on here. First, we have horrible mosquitoes. Absolutely the worst in at least 10 years. When we moved here, so this is a marsh area close to Wisconsin River. 22 years ago, I remember the realtor saying, you're going to want this screen-in porch because mosquitoes are so bad. And we thought, yeah, we'll see. And they were bad, where they actually had a truck drive up and down and do the mosquito fogging. It was pretty wild stuff. And then they stopped doing that shortly after we moved here. But this year has been horrible because we've had a lot of rain and it's been humid and warm, all pro Lemonton and misty. Mrs. Wayne, welcome to both of you. So look at this here. This amazing glow. I got a haircut today too, by the way. So that is funny. So yeah, no, I don't, seriously, it is the lighting. Like I'm not sure what is kind of going on here, but we'll go with it. So I am trying out a new router today, and we had kind of some significant technical difficulties down here in the infamous North Star Recording Studio. So what happened was the internet started to be sketchy, meaning like it would disconnect and then the Wi-Fi was kind of unreliable. Then we lost like our phone service. So like our landline phone, there was no dial tone. And so I called up, we have Charter Spectrum or Spectrum Charter Internet, whatever. So I called them up and said, hey, I'm purchasing this service from you, and that's their equipment, their modem and stuff like that. So they did send somebody out here. Really great technician came out today, and a technician who's also like a tech guy. So when he comes out, when he's not doing like his charter stuff, he's like doing like building computers and doing stuff like at home, right? So that's the kind of person you want to come out to work on your tech stuff. So coming into the house, the good news, so there's a ton of construction going on in my neighborhood. Like a block away, they ripped out a whole street and they're redoing storm sewer and all that stuff. And that's been messing with like our reliability of water, water pressure. And so we live on top of hills. So, and I'm just like, this whole thing is commingled, right? All of these different service lines and fiber optics. So I thought maybe that's messing with stuff, but, so this guy's checking. He said, no, the modem coming into the signal coming into your house is fine, which was good because they had to run a line on that a couple of years ago. So let me check here. I've got a message. We'll see if it's one of you. Oh, okay. It is not. It's telling me the show is on. My goodness, phone. Thank you for doing that. So the line coming into the house had the appropriate signal and strength and all of that. So what happened though is there was an 18-year-old modem in the next room over, which was for the phone, and that died. And that was through Charter, so they replaced it. And then he was checking out like my modem because I'm like, God, the internet's like super slow. And when I bring, is one of the things weird too. So I bring it up to the family. I'm like, hey, has anybody else noticed? And the internet's not been as reliable lately. And then of course, like everyone's like, well, yeah, it does. It's been dropping. And Yeah, one daughter's got like the wireless like Hulu and stuff like in her room, and she's like, "Yeah, it's like some days I can't even get it to where I'm like, this is the stuff you have to tell me ahead of time. You have to like let me know if these things are going on." So the tech is running the stuff. He's like, the signal's good, like right here in the office, but your router is dying or nearly dead. So he was doing some tests on the speed without the router was 3 times faster than the speed with the router. And the router like has capacity to do this. And then I also noticed like I was outside and you know how when it's nice, I like to sit on my driveway when the mosquitoes aren't horrible and just kind of watch some YouTube stuff. And I was like, yeah, my signal out here was really weak. And so that's kind of changed. So he said, your router's dying. And yes, absolutely. Like I run in the speed test and my downloads like at 100 megabytes, my uploads like at 5 megabytes. And I don't pay for very expensive internet, but the basic package I have is 300 megabytes download and 10 megabytes upload, which does everything I needed to do. But I wasn't anywhere near that. So I said, what would you do to replace this? Like, what do you recommend? Because I'm not really into routers, and this seems like this has to be a fast decision. And it's one fast stack. Look at this here. Oh my goodness. He's like, I'd buy anything made in Canada. I'm like, I know just the person to talk to. So he recommended a Nighthawk, a Netgear Nighthawk AX dual band 2400 Wi-Fi router. Which is a pretty like kind of basic router, but again, it's 5 years newer and it has a 1.5 gigahertz triple core processor or whatever. But my current one had like a 600 megahertz processor, and it was just old. And he said these things last about 5 years, and that seems to be right. So I upgraded to this and it's pretty smooth. There's an app then on my phone where I can kind of go in and tweak some of the stuff. And I've got it up now. It's elevated. It's the same platform where I had the other one, but like the range is awesome. It definitely is stronger and a further range. Plus, we synced up all the new devices to it and just everything is working great. So down here, there were also some issues. So this house was originally built by a couple that the guy worked for the railroad and it was back in 76 and he lived here for a year and then they moved, he got transferred. And then it was a pastor lived here with his family for like 20 years. And the pastor put like cable TV in every room. So the thing was he just did it on his own with like splitters. So the signal got progressively weaker. So when we moved into this house 22 years ago, like every room had a cable TV jack, but like the signal was so bad, it was kind of wavy on the TV. That was before like the flat screens and stuff. So I called Charter and then they came in and the dude's like, holy smokes. We need to get rid of a lot of this coax because like you just can't do this. You can't thin the signal down this much. So I remember him taking like just hundreds of feet of coax cable out of the house. It was just nuts. But there were some splices and things that kind of remain. So the tech today, really cool dude again, saw these and he's like, let me take these out. Let me just run a straight line over to your main. And he's like, this instantly increases you by like 20%. And then like, let me redo these connections because like this was something bought from whatever store back, 30 years ago to do this kind of splicing of the cable stuff. And some of it had corroded, which was kind of interesting because I didn't think that was kind of possible. So anyway, the internet's fast, like everything is just like amazing right now. So I would recommend. So if you're into routers, I had a Linksys, and that was kind of the router that I had for quite a number of years. And then what I went with was a Netgear Nighthawk, and I like the Netgear better. So yeah, it's been really good. So I would recommend it. It's $150. So, is what it is. You could go like you could buy more expensive ones, but that's really if you're gaming. I mean, this thing I'm only paying for 300 megabytes download of internet, and I don't game. So, but I do a lot of meetings, and I had an important meeting yesterday morning, and the the whole system held together for that, and then it kind of basically just died after that. So let me go over here. So Andrew is saying, "Hey, a UPS uninterrupted power supply helps keep electronics last longer." Yeah, it's good. It's good to know. I have two. I have two. Let me see. Jolt, protectors running parallel or direct, I should say, in this system. So I don't know. I think the router just like aged out and died because everything else was intact. I don't really remember any event that caused it, but I do know that the system had kind of faded over the last like 6 months, especially when I was outside and then now that I'm hearing like these additional reports, like when you bring it up to family and they're like, oh yeah. So I feel like these have been some big upgrades. I'm really happy about it too, because with the teaching that I do and then the consulting, I need to have the system pretty reliable. So to have it down for a couple days in summer is not a big deal. To have it down any other time is a big deal. So definitely looking for that. But so I am glad. So I'm running a new. So the one of the modems was replaced for the phone. We still have a landline phone because it had no dial tone. That one died, and then the other modem that I have is still okay, which I lease from Charter. And then the TV modem I think is only a year old, which we also lease. But I really like this Netgear, so I'm going to share screen with this Netgear. It was quick to install, and they had, so you download an app, you take a picture of the QR code inside, or I think it's on the bottom of the router, and then it brings up your directions on how to set up that router, which is pretty clever. Like it's a pretty cool way to do it. And then there's an app, which I'm not that into, but then you can control things from the app. And I also set up like guest, because if we're not here, somebody's at the house because we have cats. And then I can open up the guest stuff for them too. So let me do this. So let me get over here. There's definitely a very slim chance this will work. Yeah. All right, everybody, there it is. That is the Nighthawk from Netgear. Let me see if I can kind of get this a little bigger right there. So that's what I bought. I had to go to the neighboring town to do that, to their Walmart. It wasn't available at our Walmart. So, but thankfully it's like 15 minutes away. And yeah, actually they have a very nice Walmart. We have kind of like a Walmart that was an original smaller Walmart, and then they added on to it. So like the whole layout doesn't quite make sense, but this neighboring community has a Walmart, which was more modern. So it was all, anyway, they had 3 of these in stock, and I would give this a thumbs up from, I think, and it has a 4.8 rating. Now that's on Netgear, right? So like if you go to GM and you're like, what's a rating on this vehicle? And it's on a GM website, it's probably going to be pretty high compared to like other websites. But this is held up through like Best Buy and Walmart and some other sites, where, it's 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 7. You get that over 1,000 reviews. That's pretty good. So this one is 4.8. And this router was $150. I like it. And here's something too. When the pandemic hit, none of us knew that was going to happen, right? Until kind of shortly before it happened. Like I still had tickets to fly to Disney until like 3 days before that got canceled. But we got the previous Linksys a year before the pandemic. So it was a new router, and I was doing everything kind of remote. So it really worked out well. And now again, to update to go to a router like this, if you're, I just think we kind of entropy in these systems, right? Like routers tend to age. They're not as fast, they're not as smooth with the compatibility of the new phones, or iPads or stuff like that. So I just think it's and range, right? You get a little more range, so you can be outside. So this is $150 so far, well spent, easy to set up. And I do like the app interface. Linksys was not bad. This is definitely better though. So if you're looking at upgrading, my initial reviews is this was pretty effortless to do. Nighthawk always, or this whole Netgear thing, um, they have a pretty clever way too of the way that they initially set the password up for you. And I'm not going to give that out, I guess, in case it's proprietary, but your initial password before you go in and then kind of customize it. But I'm impressed. I like this. I'm happy with this, and I kind of tilted the antennas to aim a little bit toward the garage. So let me get out of here. By the way, some big news out of the garage, guys. I did 10 hours of concrete work in the garage this week and repaired the stud shelf wall. So when this house was built in 76, when this house was built in 76, so there was a concrete ledge poured on the exterior for the garage wall that the studs would sit on, right? So it'd be elevated off the floor. So which is logical, like that's how homes are built and have been built for quite a while. But when they put that in, there were a couple of issues. One is it was never kind of floated properly, so it was doing a lot of scaling, like big time scaling, where I was losing like an inch of material in aggregate out of there. And then also I had that concrete slab outside that went bad a few years, like 3 years ago, and then that pushed in and damaged that load bearing wall, which was bad news. So what I was able to do is I knew what I had to do to replace it, and that was to go with a strong epoxy concrete patch, which is 5 times stronger than concrete and could be load bearing. And I'll show you a before picture here. Also had a lot of plumbing that had to be done this week, but that's kind of out of my realm. So, well, the work that had to be done. So let me bring up the picture here. So look at that. Ron Wayne. That's the spirit. Gosh darn Ron Wayne. So let me bring this. So my daughter graduated high school, and we used the garage to, when we held our party at the start of June. So it's been a while before I've been able to kind of get into this. And I knew I had to do it this year. So I'm going to move us over on a share screen. Every time I do this, it's like, what? What am I looking at here? Okay. So right here, this is what I was working on. As you can see, like this is stuff that I've worked on over the years. Like a lot of this. So this is a 4-inch thick slab in the garage. Out here is like the concrete slab I had put in that goes alongside the garage. But and while this kind of maybe looks goofy, like I've done this over years, this works very well. So I will, either cut or chisel all of this out. I haven't done anything with the floor because it's been good, but this had turned all to like aggregate due to like pretty intense spalling. So it's good. And then as you can see, I poured, this is actually textured grit that goes into, because it's winter half the year here. So this is like freezing out in the garage. So you don't want to slide all over the place. But let's look at this wall. So my brother-in-law and I, we drywalled this garage and like put this stuff up. None of this was here. It was interesting, this ladder story. My dad got me this ladder when I moved here, and he's like, then you'll never regret having this ladder. You can always go up on the anything you got to address on top of the house or the siding. It's only one story, but there's some two sides that get pretty high. I have not used that ladder in 15 years. So last time I used it was for something I did up on the roof. I don't know if I worked on a shingle or something, but that ladder has not been taken down in I made the brackets for it, by the way, to hold it up there, but that ladder has not been moved in 15 years. So nope. So anyway, let's take a look. So you can see right here what's going on. This is so salt comes off of the cars. This is freezing and thawing. And this house again built in 76. So and there was a crack here, and that was being pushed in by the outside by that slab 3 years ago. So this is pretty bad. And so you can see the spalling. So what I did is spalling, and I went in, and so that's a wire brush, and then I had another wire brush I was using. And here's a chisel. Here's a chisel I made in high school. This chisel I made when I was a high schooler. My goodness. And I went through and I chiseled out that crack, so I could get a good pour into that of strong epoxy. And then I worked and I got all of the loose material off of here, which took me about 3 hours. And I didn't want to do a grinding wheel because I'm not a big fan of concrete dust, right? I don't want to, even if I have a mask, I don't want that stuff all over. So I did all of this by hand and got all of this down. And then I took a rag and soaked it in 91% isopropyl alcohol, and then ran it along like a large microfiber to suck up any of the dust. Well, first I took like the leaf blower, and after I swept everything off and blew all that stuff off, and then the final step was using the alcohol, because alcohol dries. 91% isopropyl will dry very quickly, because you can't do anything on it if it's wet. It's Vanessa Kitty. Hello. So that worked great. And then, so let me move out of here. So this project, then my goal was basically and I had to dig this out. So this is down about 2 inches, was to seal this up. So to give it structural strength through a high tensile epoxy, and then to seal up, because you have kind of this quasi dove joint here between this pour and the floor. So this was, again, never kind of like floated properly years ago. And the guy that poured the concrete slab said, yeah, you want to just seal that up and give structural stability to that. So what I did then, and so these walls are, again, they're just in the garage, and this is drywall my brother-in-law and I put up 22 years ago, and there's a hole that I patched, right? So, but it's just a garage. Let me get out of here and show you what it looks like at the end. So there was this kind of a surprise. I taped everything off with blue painter's tape, which you think would be great. And the problem was it wasn't. So here's what it looked like when I got it done and took off the blue painter's tape. So let us see. All right. So, and the thing is with this, like, this was about as good as I could get this. Now, this is 5 times harder than concrete. I just need it to seal, and you don't want to smooth it down too much on something that's load bearing, because if you do that, it's not going to adhere as well. And I don't care about aesthetics. This actually looks pretty good. But I needed to make sure that this was going to adhere. And I use nitrile gloves And I probably went through 20 pairs of nitrile gloves. But my hands are bare of any epoxy or concrete. So I'm a big fan. But as you look at this, see, like, the blue painter's tape pulled out some of the paint, which was really disappointing. I was going to go with frog tape, which is the green stuff. You got to pay like $2 more, and I should have done that. So I'm pretty let down on the blue painter's tape that it just didn't peel off. That it took big chunks of paint off. So what I had to do was go back in here and fix this. Fix this wall. Again, it's in a garage. So let me get out of there, and I'll show you what the end product looks like after I put white exterior semi-gloss on there. So dun 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 dun, and the Eep from Ipanema. Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm gonna bring this up. Feel free to share thoughts. This was a day's project. So here's what it looks like today. Or this picture's probably from yesterday, but so that is done all the way. And this door is kind of rusting out a little bit. So this door was put in 2008, and that was an epoxy patch I put on last year, which is holding up fine. It's Bondo. And then I need to my brother-in-law he was going to recondition this door because the frame is built into steel siding in the outside, and you'd have to do a lot of messing around with very expensive steel siding. So it's just better to take this and kind of make it a Bondo door and paint it, call it good. I see I've got a little bit down here. I've got to go back in and paint. So this, I went in and I touched this up. So this, to me looks fine, because here's my car. Here's some gasoline. And I did put marks on the walls so I know where the studs are. I'll probably go in with a marker and put a little mark on there just to make it a little easier. But yeah, so now this is about, in materials, about a $200 repair that I did. And again, to me, like, this is awesome. This is great because I addressed all of the spalling and scaling and the side. And then this is also, there was a 1/8 of an inch between this and the floor. So they must have poured the floor after they did the wall. So I wanted to seal that up so I wasn't getting any moisture in there. So I'm really happy with it, though. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you think, but and the stuff sets up really fast. So you can see, like, there's some paint that came down, even though I taped it off. Again, with blue painter's tape, the tape didn't seal up that well. But again, it's a garage. But this structurally will not chip or flake and won't be impacted by salty snow coming off of my tires. So I'm pretty happy with this. And I also had a smaller than a dime sized spot on my garage door. And I sanded down my interior garage door last year and repainted it, the inside panels. And the garage door is, again, from like 76. So it's really heavy steel and reinforced. So it's, like heavy storms, the garage door doesn't move because it's like heavy steel. And I noticed a small area of rust coming through. So I treated that with vinegar first to neutralize the rust. Then I sanded that down, that area, completely. And then I went back in and primed it with automotive primer, the same stuff I use actually when I do a little touch up on my car. And then I went in and put a couple layers of paint onto that and blend it. It's just that small area in the bottom. No one will ever notice. Don't care. But so let me show you one more picture here of this was on my summer to-do list, though. I knew I had to have like 80 degrees and 50% humidity for this to set up well. If you don't, you guys probably know this, but like, if you don't do that with epoxies, they get real goofy on you. So, they just don't set up very well, and they can stay kind of in that bad state for like a year. So here's again, there's all my lawn equipment up there. There's a ladder, which I haven't used in 15 years. This is that exterior door, which I forgot to get the door out. Frame's fine. Um, and then this is this is the part that I finished off. And it looks like it's not, the drywall. That's just because the paint, you can kind of see where the paint is fresh here. So what I would like to do at some time is to run a trim board along the bottom. They have that synthetic trim board. I used it outside around some posts and it worked really well. Just aesthetically to run a little trim board here, and I have a little bit kind of where you come into the house from the garage that would just make it look a little more tidy. But at this point, like, water's not going to work its way. I mean, this wall's been up for 22 years, this piece of drywall, or pieces of drywall. And you can tell, like, we didn't really like tape the seams of that wall. And we just kind of needed to get this done 22 years ago. This was all unfinished, It's pretty. There was only one light in the garage, and there was a belt-driven garage door opener. And up here, where this is now held up by, metal frames, the garage door was held up by chains to the ceiling. So every time the garage door would come up, it would sway back and forth, which was pretty crazy. That was like the house that we moved into. So, and then as you see, like, a lot of the floor that I've addressed kind of over the years, this is just spalling. It just means that the floor's intact. Again, it's at least 4 inches of concrete. So it's structurally sound. It's just, it was never floated properly. So you've got to deal with that when you have salt coming off of vehicles on that year after year after year here in Wisconsin. So that's kind of it. So I'm pretty happy. I really like the way this turned out. Anytime you're doing, when you're doing the flat surface on the top, that's fairly easy. When you're doing the sides, it's harder. See, because you have to let the material set up more before you apply it, because you don't want it to run. I didn't want to put a form onto here because I didn't really need it to be super smooth. And also keeping it rough was good because I had it all cleaned out for the adherence of the epoxy. It's like perfect for what I needed it to be. So I don't know what you guys think. If you're like, good job, Doc, or you're like, whoa, it's horrible. It's horrible. No, it's not. But I'm glad that's done. It kind of sucked. It sucked not having it done. So, dun, dun, dun. And it looks good. Well, thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Terrific job here from Ron Wayne. It looks like it's sealed. Yeah, it did. I went through, and then I had a bucket of water and, of course, the nitro gloves. So as things started to set up, I made sure I would go through with my thumb, get it wet and then go through and move any of the epoxy to make sure everything was sealed. So that's great. Nothing is going to go wrong with that. And again, it kind of got messed up from that concrete. The concrete outside that was poured 2 years ago, that's perfect. There's not a crack anywhere in it. There's the joints that were put in that obviously have the cracks that are intentional, but that slab is perfect. I absolutely love that. It's done everything we've needed it to do. Like, we can move a car over there, and it's one of those things, like, I had high hopes for that, and it like turned out exactly as I hoped. There's no letdown there. Like, I love that. So, but yeah, I am really happy. So, and Andrew, you're talking about a drone on the garage roof. So this is interesting. I met with my insurance agent this week, and we had about a 90-minute meeting. And one of the things I learned, which I expected, so we had, maybe like 15 years ago, I don't think it was that long, but we had a new roof put on. So all the shingles removed, and then a 40-year landmark certainty roof shingle, architectural shingle put on. And that's held up really well, really well. And we had like a hailstorm, I don't know, 2 years ago, and our insurance carrier sent someone out to look at our roof, and they're like, yeah, it looks good. I mean, there's a couple minor things, but it's like, your 40-year shingles, everything is structurally good. So that's good. But the insurance companies in Wisconsin are changing, and they will insure. This is kind of where you're at now. The first 5 years is like 100%. And then there's like next 5 years is prorated. And after that, it's kind of like you might not get anything. Um, but one thing, that my insurance agent said is go with a metal roof if you're going to stay there. And my roof is in fine condition. I don't have anything to worry about unless we we get a big storm or, uh, you know, but I'm putting a metal roof on the next time we have to replace. I'm going to put a metal roof on. And now the question comes up. I don't know what to do, whether I could pull off a copper color roof. Um, it would match the house really well, but it would stand out in the neighborhood. And I'm pretty on edge about doing that because there's nobody in the neighborhood that has anything like that. Um, it's one of those things where I think if the house was on its like own piece of land of 5 acres and you did that, it would look awesome. I'm not sure it would look awesome next to our neighbors. Now, granted, like more of our neighborhood is becoming metal roofs, but I also am like, oh, I don't know, like brown doesn't seem like the right color either. And red would kind of be cool, but that's a little like eccentric and just um I don't know. I've seen houses similar to ours in different areas that have the copper colored roof and it looks awesome. So maybe I'll just do that. Because actually I do think it would look awesome. My neighbor two down from me like painted his house like robin eggshell blue, which is weird. So I think I can pull off a copper roof. It would look really cool because we have the stone work out in front of the house and copper would go pretty well. Let me bring up a picture of the house and then you guys give me a thought what you're thinking here. So I burned all my photos over last month. So I've got to find like just a photo of the front of the house, which that seems like that should be an easier thing than it is here. View. What in the world? Oh, we also got a new refrigerator last month, which is rocking. I love it. It's a 29 cubic foot up from a 22. And just to give you an idea, my brother-in-law came up and cut our cabinets down. And I'm going to give you the picture here. This is how much clearance we had. Good night, everyone. Andrew's leaving. Andrew, my goodness, that's what Red Bull is for. That's what Monster Soda is for, my good friend. All right. So yeah, we picked up a GE 29 cubic foot French door fridge. And these are the cabinets from 76. So my brother-in-law took this out and it says like on the back, like July 5th, 1976, that it was stamped. And he cut this up. And there's a little kind of ridge underneath. And then it cleared by, this is between a 16th and an eighth of an inch, this new fridge. So the other one we had an inch and a half clearance, but yay. So pretty wild there that happened. But so, yeah. And here it is. Let's do a picture. This, it's been in our house now for 1 month. I love this. It's cool. So right there it is. And so, yeah, that's a GE twin cool. And then it's ice with ice tray. We didn't do like the water. I don't like a water dispenser in here. But this has LED lighting. Like there's 6 LED lights inside and then there's LED lighting. So it's just is really a nice fridge. And then, we have our ice maker back because it died on the old one. And to go from 22 cubic foot to 29, I thought it was going to be too big, but it fits like perfect in the space. And it's so much nicer to have a larger fridge and freezer. We have a freezer downstairs too, but like this is just such a step up from what we had, um, you know, which had largely given up the ghost too. Like it thawed itself out twice, and there's water on the floor, and then the old one and stuff like that. So it's really cool. There it is. I like that. I think that is a cool looking fridge. So yeah, yeah. Let me get a picture of my house. All right, so well, here's a picture. This is I'll have to zoom in. Oh, you guys get the idea. Okay, so this is my house. My house in the middle of my house. All right, guys. So share screen. Okay, I personally think that a copper steel roof would look good on this. I think it would match the stone. This is all steel siding, so this isn't going to be replaced. This will be on for the life of the house. It's hurricane grade steel siding. So I think it would be a good compliment. Because I think if you went dark, I think if you went brown, it just the contrast would be weird. I think you've got to stay with something that's lighter. So that's obviously the shingle that's on there, but I could see doing all copper colored roof on here in metal, and I think it would look kick-ass. I do. Red, but red's not going to draw really well. Copper though plays because this is all stone, wall over here plus a chimney. It just plays well off of that. So what do you guys think? Vanessa, Ron Wayne? What are you guys thinking? Do you think a metal copper roof would look okay? Again, this is all hurricane grade steel. So that's, like a tan, like a light tan taupe, I guess, siding. So that's not going to change. So, I don't know. I think it would really stand out. It's going to probably limit the people who might buy the house down the road. I don't know. But I think steel roof is an asset, and you pay a lot less in insurance in Wisconsin for hail damage if you have a steel roof. So anyway, what do you think, Ron Wayne, Vanessa? Somebody's watching. So what do you think? Yeah. So let me know. So let's get out of here. Dun 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 Eep from Ipanema. All right, so that's kind of it for the sharing of stuff. So a few things. Hey, Solitude Surfer is saying, I think copper would look great. Thank you. I do. And I think once it's in, it would definitely be the right decision. Yes, the Nighthawk. So some upgrades here, some reliability in the system, which is all good. I have not biked yet this summer. So that's one of the things. This is the latest since I've started biking, which was back around 2011, 2012, when I actually started to bike on a regular schedule in summer. I haven't biked yet. And, it bothers me somewhat because biking is enjoyable. It's health. It's, I like the areas I bike in. There's a lot of interesting stuff to see and experience. And I like my bike, right? So, and I haven't biked yet. It's still in the basement. Last week I did work on it a little bit to kind of condition it for a ride, but yeah. Well, look at this. It's Ron Wayne. I'm with you, buddy. I have seen houses kind of similar to ours with copper roofs. Every time I go by them, I'm like, wow, like that is really cool. Now, not in our neighborhood, like these are kind of mostly like lake houses and stuff, but I'm like, I just think it would look awesome. Um, so I think I, yeah, I'm very against brown, and I think anything like beige or something would look really weird or over the years. But I think copper is like, I think it just plays really well, and considering they're still siding. So Ron Wayne's like, sorry, I had to take a nap. Like, I get it, man. I'm getting old. Um, so Ron's doing all this editing, he's growing the channel, which is good. By the way, guys, like this is my new calculator. This is like this thing is like 9 inches by 7 inches. This is a big calculator. And actually, I like this calculator a lot. I had to get this because the other calculator that I had since college stopped working. And that was the end of it. It was a solar calculator. It didn't matter. It stopped working. So this is not an expensive, like $12 or something at Walmart, Casio. But it's really nice. Like I like having the button spread out, and I have the space for it on the desk. It is kind of ridiculously large, but like it, when I'm needing to use the calculator, it's just easy to go and not have the numbers, so close together. And it goes up to 12 decimals so I can calculate out how much Ron Wayne is making on his podcast. So, or 12 numericals, places. I had to understand how to do the add and the cut and the rounding stuff because it's all part of this. And I did, and I like it. So copper looks good as years go by too. I agree. I think it would age really well. And the fact that the siding will not be replaced. Again, it's hurricane grade steel siding, which would be on for the life of the house as long as we're here. If someone wants to move in, to change out that siding would be, tens of thousands of dollars. So, that's another factor is we're not going to run into some situation where the roof isn't going to match the siding. So I'm really leaning toward copper. I think I just think the house would look pretty stunning. So we live next to a house that has like, it's a small mansion. It's got like pillars in the front and they have a big waterfall in the back. And so like it pairs off of that. And then down from us, like a block away is when you get into some very high end homes, so like it wouldn't be out of place in our neighborhood to kind of do this. It's just there's no one in our neighborhood it's on a copper roof, but we have had a number of metal roofs kind of appear. So I'm going to do it. Gosh darn it. If anyone's like, why'd you do it? I'm like, Ron Wayne told me. I was like, who's this Ron Wayne? Like, you might know him as the Kentucky Batman. They're like, yes. Now we know who you're talking about. But we only know him as the Kentucky Batman. Have you outed him? Have you given his identity like Bruce Wayne? I'm like, I don't know. He's a good guy though. So they're like, why are you flying the Kentucky flag? I'm like, because Ron Wayne, bat signal. So I haven't biked yet this year, which is really weird. And I had the bike, I had tuned up and all of that stuff and everything's fine. But now it gets to be one of those things where like, to get into biking condition takes a while, and work consulting, teaching at the university starts again in 6 weeks. So I'm really pretty measured on my expectations for biking this summer. And the mosquitoes are horrible. So when you're out biking, you have to deal with that, which makes it unpleasant. Like if biking at all is unpleasant, like if it's windy biking, in Wisconsin, you get these, once you kind of get into October, like biking practically is over unless you're one of these people that wants to bike in cold weather, which isn't me. So I will get out and bike. I don't know if it'll be this week. I'm going golfing next week. So that is kind of big news. put a guess in the chat here of the last time I went golfing. How many years ago I went golfing? Put a guess in the chat. It's been a while. Take a guess. But I am going golfing next week. So put a guess in the chat. So all right. Trying to find what in the world. Seems like I'm missing pictures out of my Dropbox. Strange. So by the way, I said there's road construction down from me. This is the road at the end of my street. So this is like 300 feet from me. This is the main road. We do have another road we can take, which we do. That's the road. So they are digging this down in some spots. And this all washed out on Saturday, by the way. So a car was driving through here and they got stuck in a big gully. But this is being dug down, about 8 to 10 feet as they put storm sewer and it's working its way. So this road was in really bad shape. So this is my neighborhood. These aren't my homes, but these are a block from me. So I'm like up this way. So yeah, this is just a mess, which really sucks. So, but okay, here we go. By God, I knew I'd be able to find it sooner or later. All right, so let's look in the chat here of when do you think the last time Misty Mrs. Wayne and Runway. Okay, let me share screen. Since I've done this like 10 times tonight and every time is kind of new, I'm not sure what's up. So 18 years ago is saying Ron Wayne and Misty saying 12. So the last time I golfed was Ron saying it's been 26 years since I've been on a course. Look at Ron. So last time I golfed was in 2013. Last time. So it's been 11 years. And so these are my clubs. So I took them out. And as you can see, actually, so I have my baseball glove, my softball glove, and that's my daughter's. So this was a day, it was like in the 80s and sunny. So here's my chair. Here's the concrete slab, as you guys can see, like right. And the neighbor painted this fence too, which is really nice because it had been flaking off. That's their fence. That's the property line. It's right on the property line. So there's my chair. First things, my slippers, these are Uggs. And this works really well. You have to be careful cleaning Uggs because if you get them wet, it ruins them. And I've had these things for many, many years. Only wear them inside. If you take a Lysol wipe and you go through and clean the inside of Uggs, it works well to fluff them up. And so I worked on that for a couple hours on each one, and it did a great job cleaning the Uggs out, getting them to feel real fluffy inside again. So that was that. And then I have some glove oil that I put on my glove and then my daughter's glove. And then I let them sit out in the sun for a while to kind of bake in. But here's my golf bag. And I have over 80 golf balls between each side. And I have probably like 100 tees like up here and down here. So because I expect to lose a lot of golf balls. And I'm golfing with my good friend John. And we will be going out, next week to do 18. So this will be going with me. One of the clubs, one of my mid-range clubs, not an iron, like a specialty club, the handle was deteriorating on it. So I'll use it, but I'll have to, I don't know. I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'll have to find some tape to tape the handle, kind of like you do for handlebars, like on a 10-speed bike. But yeah, so this is not a great set of clubs, but it is a set of clubs that I bought maybe in like 2010 or 11. I traded in a set to to buy these. Then there's some specialty clubs that I bought on my own, but I hadn't used this. It had been downstairs. I had a garbage bag over the top to keep the dust out. So, we'll see. The iron should hold up all right. I don't know about how these fiberglass, woods are going to hold up, but it's going to be fun. It is just fun. And here's the one thing I would say to everybody listening, all four of us. But it's so important to keep in touch with your friends, right? And here again there's some of the golf balls. There's that concrete slab, and you can see the neighbor painted the fence, which looks great. The slab is amazing, again, and it's tilted. So I think I have a 4-degree down angle on it. So water wouldn't come toward the garage. And then also the previous one that was put in there was just like, they must have did it on their own. They just put it on dirt. So this was all dug out, had concrete, was pounded, or had gravel was pounded down and then poured in. But this slab is awesome. I'm just so thrilled with how that turned out. And then the edging back there, like the concrete, this is all concrete, poured concrete edging. This stuff's perfect. 3rd year now, this stuff is perfect. And then going off into my backyard there, so 100 feet back. Pretty cool. Like, it's just a nice area. So one of the things, you need to make an effort to hang out with your friends. And that was something I hadn't done very well in the last couple of years. So, because I've been in a lot of different jobs, right? So I know a lot of people, but I've been in a lot of places. So when you leave places, like, you typically don't, maintain those work friendships, I guess. But two of my friends, so John is just a terrific guy. He works in the Department of Corrections. I knew him when he worked as a teacher. And, I was talking to him in spring and said, we've got to set up like a time this summer. We both live in the same state. And just like, 18 holes of golf and lunch. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So we were able to do that, which I feel great about. And then I also have a friend who lives more northern part of the state. And I was talking to him too. And I said, we used to go out on boats, his boat on the Wisconsin River and stuff. And his mom passed away about a month ago. And I said, dude, like, I haven't seen you in 4 years. Like, let's schedule a time. I'll come up. We can grill out. If you want, if your boat is in and you want to take the boat out for a while, we can do that. We don't have to, but like, it would just be good to hang out. So it's Atham. Atham's like, I've got internet connection now. I did not have it when I was in the cave 30 minutes ago. Gosh darn caver right there, hanging out with Aaron Clary and Chad Elkins, our good friend Atham. So, that was a big thing this summer. It was like, I need to hang out with some people that I haven't hung out with for a while, who, just cool people. And I think that's important going forward. And so that's good. Like I said, the biking thing is kind of weird because I haven't biked, and I will, but I'm going to have to like do shorter bike rides. And it was disappointing because I went out, I looked at Google Maps, and I'm like, what are some areas that I could bike? And I had some new, trucks put together, and I guess, next year's got to be the priority for that. Things got kind of weird because I did my consulting through like June 7th, and I normally don't go that late. I end it before Memorial Day. So, and then my daughter graduated, and then we had her graduation party a week later. So I didn't want to bring the bike into the garage because I knew we'd be setting that up for the graduation party. And then we were on vacation, and then, I taught a university class in June. So that took time away, a class where I was the professor, because the professor on record was on sabbatical. So I was teaching the class, which went great, but then it just kind of took away my June. But I'm like, yeah, I got to get out and bike. I got to do it. Anthem, right? Got to be biking every day. Got to be biking. But I want to be biking now. So I think this weekend it's, quasi mosquitoes. Plus we had a lot of rain, like we had a lot of rainy days. It just was possible to bike. So I want to hit out and get out biking. And I don't really have other big aspirations. So the new weed eater or string trimmer is working well. My Echo. It took a while to get the hang of that because I had the big 4-stroke Briggs and Stratton, which weighed, like 35 pounds, and he had a shoulder harness. And actually I like the Echo better. I mean, it's a gas trimmer. So, but it is lighter, and the shield is much smaller than the large hood that went around the string on the Briggs and Stratton, which was 20 years old. So I'm able to do some pretty cool things when I trim, and I've been kind of like doing some different edging that works well. And I got some really cool 0.95 nylon string, to make sure I can cut along the concrete without marring it, the landscape concrete. So the house looks really cool. Everything is really well kind of edged and really well maintained this year. So pretty happy with that. I have to dye my mulch probably in about 2-3 weeks for the final time this year. I'm going to wait. If the mosquitoes are bad, I'm not going to deal with it. So call it good. Call it good. So yeah. So the big things, I lost my router died. My Linksys router of 5 years died. And I replaced it. So right now, today I'm working here. I have the new Netgear, which I really like. I'm really very happy with that. So kind of just good timing. Charter Spectrum, this is one of those things that's hit and miss. Like if you get the right tech, you're going to be in good shape again. And I was able to get the right tech today, just the guy who, like when he's not at Spectrum, like he's at his house, like making computers and doing other tech stuff. That's the person you want. So, and then, able to come in and just a good dude. So got everything up. We got, and I knew like a lot of the stuff in the original charter stuff was like getting close to 20 years old. So, getting that all up and running, and then taking care of that concrete this week was a big thing in the garage door. I don't really have any projects left for this year. It's just, I need to get out on my own. I really do. And bike. Like that's the thing is, so there was a river rescue in my town. This is an interesting story. It was about a week ago. My youngest daughter and I were playing basketball, and there's actually our town has a number of very nice parks. It's the third oldest town in Wisconsin, and it has, as it was expanding, there were a number of parks set aside. So, and the city went in and did the glass backboards and, some nice basketball courts on some of these parks. So we were at one of the parks, and suddenly there's this kind of commotion and stuff like that. And they're like, hey, there's this like kayaker who's like hanging on to this tree that's in the Wisconsin River. So we're at this park right next to the Wisconsin River. And then, so we go over there, and the police department arrived, and so we've had a lot of rain, like 16 inches of rain in June we had. So the river was very high and very fast. So just like face validity, if I was out there, and I've canoed a lot in my life, like I would not go out on the river. Current was way too fast, or it was way too high. So you're overflowing toward the banks and stuff like that too. So just like you wouldn't do it. But this person went out and kayaked, or tried to kayak, I should say. So they went in from a boat landing about a half mile up, and then where this park is, which is very close to then the bridges, one of the bridges that goes over the Wisconsin River, they lost control and steered themselves into the trees to try to like slow down, and then the kayak got hung up, and this person like was hanging on a tree limb. Big tree limb is out in the river. I don't know the whole. I kind of read it after the fact, but so I went up there along with like other people, and then the police had arrived, and then the fire department arrived, and the fire department with their boat, because we're on a river, they're used to river rescues. They arrived, and then they were pulling up, and they had to try to like get limbs out of the way to rescue this person. But and they did. So it was pretty traumatic. And someone drowned in the river like downstream the day before. So there was some. The initial buzz was, oh, like they found the body of this person who drowned. But I'm like, well, no, because like the person drowned like 4 miles downstream. So that whatever's going on here, the two things aren't related. But yeah, I was just thinking, not to not to speak ill of this person, this kayaker, but I'm like, you had to know, like, this was a bad decision. Like, so where you put in, it's a little more of a cove where you can kind of you could get out 100 feet and you could be like, yeah, this isn't the day. Like, I'm not trusting the water, and you could turn around and get yourself back in. But like this whole thing like just didn't make sense. So you put yourself at risk, and then you put the rescuers at risk, and it was pretty traumatic. But yeah, I mean, they got this person out. I did hear, and I'm not sure if this is accurate, that the person was charged or was fined $600 because they didn't have a life jacket on when they were kayaking. And apparently you have to, if there's a rescue involved, and then there is a charge of $600 if you were not wearing a flotation. I don't know if it's completely true. I was told that by somebody closer to the situation. So, but it was interesting to watch the rescue, because we were up then on a paved area, and this person was probably 30 feet from us, because it just went down the bank, and then the fire trucks are there. And but I kept thinking, like, how did you just not realize this was a bad decision? Like, it just seemed pretty crazy. So they're okay, but it's like, whoa. So my fall plans. So one of the probably bigger things is I'm going to be, teaching the 2 courses again in fall. And I taught a course in spring. I taught a course in summer, filling in, which was great. I loved it. And another, like teaching a course, when it's like 80 degrees and sunny out on a university campus. I mean, that's great. But I am going to cut back my consulting. And I had a meeting with my CPA Tuesday, or as we call it, yesterday, and went through a lot of things. Like, but one of the things was kind of this because I had retired, then I came out of retirement, and this kind of whole thing of like, what does it mean at certain benchmarks of like what I do versus taxes and implications down the road. And there's this threshold, which is becoming very apparent, that if I start to cross over and do some of the things that I did last year, like really ramp up the consulting, you start to put yourself into other tax brackets and other implications related to that, which ultimately just don't benefit, don't benefit me from what I'm trying to do. So, so the short of that is I'm not going to consult as much as I did during last year. We're going to cut it down. I can actually give you a percent here on my big calculator. I'm going to cut it down by 31%. So I'm going to consult 31% less than what I did last year. So I'm looking forward to that, because I always kept Wednesdays open in my schedule, and now I'm going to do Wednesdays and Fridays So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I'll book sun up to sundown. I consult Wisconsin and California, so it's time zone stuff too. Um, but I'm going to build in that extra day that is just a David day. So I think that's that's good to know going in where things are at. I'm excited about that. So yeah, all good stuff. So those are the fall plans, and that might be able to extend, allow me to extend my biking, um, through September a little bit. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I'm yeah, cutting back my consulting because it really starts to work against me. Um, Now it's an uneasy time, right? Because like I have no idea what's going to happen, and none of us do probably with the elections. Or when I say elections, we also have like a referendum here for a new middle school and an aquatic center, and it's like $100 million. And I I am in support of that because the aquatic center was in a building which was like 90 years old and it can't be used anymore. It's structurally unsound, and then the middle school is also an antiquated building which should be replaced. So the thought in my community is to build a middle school and attach it to the high school, which was built in '94, which is a modern facility. And then there's a lot of efficiencies in that from a staffing standpoint to have the buildings connected and the ability to share, possibly some of your HVAC and your other systems, within that. So, but yeah, I am, and the aquatic center, would be a benefit for the town. It was kind of neat. You guys probably know, but the town I grew up in was like 1,500 people, and they had a double Olympic sized pool, which is donated by philanthropists in town. And I was the first, one of the first employees. So the first group of employees hired like 8 of us. I was one of those 8. So I was there as the building was being finished and as it opened up its doors. And so it was really, really an incredible asset for a community like 1,500 to have this indoor pool. So, but yeah, I am reluctant to cut back consulting in a year when I think things are going to be really crazy economically, and also with inflation and just instability in the country, right? But on the other hand, you know, I consulted way too much in spring, and I kind of did that for the same reasons I'm talking about now. Is I thought it was a hedge against inflation, and to some extent, it was. But I don't want to, and I kind of put myself in the situation I'm in now where I haven't biked yet. Had I not consulted as much in spring, I could have maybe been out in May and gotten some biking in. And I just don't want to spend all the time working right now. And I think I could easily kind of trap myself into that. So, especially with this brand new Netgear router. So, yeah. So cool. So any questions from anyone? Part of tonight's show was to just check how this whole system was working after it's been kind of massively updated today. So I'm really happy with the router. It's just a big upgrade. And my oldest daughter is heading to college, so that we don't have quite the same demand for bandwidth. I might have gone with a little bigger router, although this one is bigger than the one that I had as far as capacity. But Solitude Server is saying, take time for yourself, Doc. Yeah, you got it. I think that is important. And so those are a couple things kind of left on my agenda list here for what's left of summer. which, for me is about 6 weeks, is to get out and do some biking. Um, I'll be golfing next week, hanging out again with one of my friends, Phil, who I haven't seen in 4 years, but gonna, touch base and see what's happening and visit him. So we used to, he has a boat. I don't know if he's put it in um, the slip this year or not, but we used to, go out boating, which was pretty cool on a very wide, like a mile wide area of the Wisconsin River. Um, so, but otherwise, yeah, I don't have anything kind of podcast. Oh, I do have something podcast related. I'm going to be a guest on the Graham Wilson show on Friday. So you probably know him as Super Pilot-ish. Graham Wilson, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. I think so. Or is it 11? Super Graham Wilson. Let me see if he's put anything out there for that show yet. So I've been asked to be a guest on a few shows lately. And one was to talk about school, cell phones in school. And I told the guest, so, all right. So we are, so Graham did a show. I don't see any kind of preps here from Graham's channel saying like, hey, coming up is the safety doc. So I'll have to see what's going on here. Don't see it. But I've had people ask me, hey, will you come on and talk about cell phones in schools? And I've had 2 people request that this week. And I'm like, the thing is, when I work with administrators, it's just not a big thing on their radar. Like the media makes it out to be a thing, and it is a concern, or however you want to approach it. But I don't think cell phones in schools. So some districts are banning cell phones during instructional time and whatever, but I just don't see that as sticking. I think as soon as there's school violence or a school shooting and students didn't have phones to be able to communicate what's happening, that will be the end of that, and that will be the precedence, and students will be allowed to have phones. I just don't see this as like this big wave where phones will be banned from schools. I just don't. And the superintendents and the school leaders I work with, it's just not on the radar. The big thing is like, how are they going to handle AI? And I've dealt with this myself because I have a number of assignments in my classes, and many of them are actually case studies we do in class. But there's assignments like, what is your vision for whatever, or what is your management roles if you're in a superintendent position or something like that. Well, like I could type that into ChatGPT and generate a response, a paper to that in 5 seconds. So, I'm going through my own materials saying, some of this, the student could just generate this, and I really wouldn't know. So I'm having to kind of reframe that. And I've already done quite a few pivots to in-class things that you're not going to use ChatGPT. But on the other side, I'm not anti-ChatGPT. I think if you have a roughed out project, right, and you want to say, hey, like improve this, or like improve the grammar or something like that, and punch it in, like, and it gives you something better, that's fine. Like that's a free personal assistant right there. So I don't see any problem with that. It's kind of like having a calculator to some extent. But, if you're saying, hey, like write a paper about why it's important for a special education director to have a shared vision with other school leaders and community people, and it generates a paper, that's one thing. Then it's just giving you that's not necessarily plagiarism. It's just the machine just fabricating, is pulling something together from somewhere. That's one thing. Like ChatGPT is really bad at citations. If you say like, find 2 research studies on whatever, it really struggles with that. And sometimes the stuff it finds is not accurate. It doesn't cite correctly. But so I've been looking at how I can improve the things that I do and more in class stuff for sure. And then I think it's fine to use. I don't think it's going away, right? All this AI type of chat GPT-ish stuff. I have an image generator, which I have an educator edition, which created the thumbnail for the show. So I don't think those things are inherently bad. And I think ChatGPT can and will increase the fluid, to the point content which we're going to consume on the internet. But then it gets into this whole dead internet theory of, well, then is everything just going to kind of like cite itself or reference other stuff? And you're not going to have new authentic creations like the velocity of information, which you should buy and review. You're not going to have that where I interview 12 people and do 471 citations. You're going to have AI generate its own narratives and generate its own. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull from other things that exist out there, like velocities of information and stuff like that. Who knows where it informs itself? So you're just going to get better curated information, but it's not going to be like new information. And I think that's the risk we run into with ChatGPT and stuff like that. And that's where I would stress to the superintendents and school leaders is, I think that's your whole goal when you're doing Board of Education policies and you're trying to develop curriculum and help teachers with instruction, is if ChatGPT is just curating information that's out there and making it easier to consume, it's more streamlined, but it's not new, it's not original, then that's not what you want. But if someone is clunky at putting something together and they put their draft in, and then they submit it and say, like, improve this, and then they kind of tailor it and tweak it from there, I think that's great. It's like everybody has somewhat of their own personal grammar or style editor. And there are some things where I think, ChatGPT can be kind of interesting. So when I was teaching the superintendent class in fall, we had, I think it was a policy about using AI and ChatGPT in schools, and nobody had one, and none of my students did. So I logged into my ChatGPT during class in front of students, and I said, well, let's ask ChatGPT, like, what might a Board of Education policy look like for using ChatGPT and AI in schools? And hit return. 5-10 seconds later, it created a policy. And of course, it was biased. It definitely wanted you to use ChatGPT and AI. And it had some interesting points in it. But I'm like, wow, like, look at this. Like, here's your draft policy to kind of work from. So another angle on this is people are going to what if you are writing a student report? You're a special education teacher. You have what's called an individualized education plan. You're writing it for a student. And you have the student's name and you rough it out. Students, here's their performance and reading, and here's what they're doing well. Here's the struggles, whatever. You put it in, and then you draft out, you copy it over to ChatGPT. Well, now you've just put confidential information into ChatGPT, and you can say, improve this, and maybe it renders a better version for you. Hands down, you're like, this is much better. It's going to be better for the parent, simplify this or make this 100 words versus what it is. But now you've just given this confidential information to the system, right? So what does that mean? And who could ever really check on that? And what's the HIPAA and FERPA protections? And I don't know, like, it just... So it's strange. And what if you have proprietary information that you're using in whatever business you're at, and you're just putting some of that in there and you're saying like render whatever. Well, now again, you've submitted information. And so I think some examples, some rubrics to come out on that. But these districts that are immediately jumping on, we're banning ChatGPT. I think that's a bad move. And I don't think you'll be able to enforce it. And these other AI generative things. I think it's going to force you to be more creative in what you're doing. But again, if somebody, if as an author, I worked with editors and who would go through and say, here's some ideas I have on some of the ways that you're doing transitions. Most of the editorial stuff was probably on citations, and that's where ChatGPT does a very poor job in the AI stuff. Like, how do you, how is this cited Chicago style or whatever and things like that. But if I could write a book if I was using ChatGPT and I'm inputting ideas in probably a week, I could do a 200-page book. I'm not going to do that, but it also puts you in a weird spot as an author. Thankfully, both of my books came out before the ChatGPT AI engines were out there, for public consumption. But now there's so much, you could jump on this as an author and kind of just go crazy with it. And both of my audiobooks are narrated. I'm also seeing like there's a change in that, a pivot where I think Audible is now allowing AI voices to narrate books. I could be wrong on that, but it might be Spotify. It's somewhere, which is one of the bigger audiobook distributors is allowing that, where in the past you could not do that. When I had my books narrated, I narrated one. Ben Hawk narrated The Velocity of Information. It wasn't allowed. Couldn't do it. So that's where I'm kind of leaning with my work in fall, is to bring out a lot of policy stuff with my students on augmented intelligence and artificial intelligence, I guess, AI type stuff, ChatGPT. But I don't know. I think we're going to, if I'm looking at this, I think we're going to see a pretty sharp increase in the quality of like news articles, blog posts. Like when I say quality, like the grammar, being concise, those types of things. But they're going to start to look very similar. And then I think you're going to have this plateau within 24 months where new content is going to drop off. Unless, anything that's new that happens as an event will be covered, right? If there's an earthquake or something like that. But as far as like human creativity of new content, I think is going to start to drop off, or opinion pieces, positional pieces. I think AI is going to be the dominant force in that. So again, I'm glad I wrote my books when I did, because I think I think we're going to have this period in time when you're going to look at things, and it's going to be in the period of before AI and generated text, and the period after. And even if you completely authentically create something in after without any AI influence, it's still in this realm of, was that authentically created, or was some of this material AI generated, and how would you ever know? So I don't know. It's kind of a crazy time. There was a little bit of a rumbling in spring with my publisher of maybe like doing a second edition of School of Airs, but the opportunity was there. I said no at the time. It was way too much to take on. And also, I just don't know. The election has to play out. There's so many policy changes that could happen depending upon which party wins in November, that to start writing about school safety now is pretty immature as far as like the writing process. Because I think that the framework of school safety changes after November. So we'll see where things go. I don't really, again, I don't have much desire at the moment to do this. I know I could do a good job. School of Airs is still relevant, so it'll basically be an updating the School of Airs, keeping a substantial portion of that. And but I've got to see how things play out for the next year before I kind of dive in there. And again, AI I think is going to be a big part of school safety, and I think we're entering this whole realm too. So my special education legal class in fall, for the first time ever, I'm going to introduce, that you have to work in a team in class. I guess you could log in to ChatGPT and try to figure this out, but I want you to come up with a policy for if a student can have a robot dog, a robot companion with them, a robot dog, or if they could have access to chat GPT, for communication, right? To better organize and their responses. And that may seem like way out there, but I don't think it is. I don't think we're far off from like robotic service animals. I think that's 3 years away that you'll see the first. I've already seen this thing, like it's called a leak or something. They're starting to use it in assisted living environments where it's kind of like an Alexa, but it's more tailored to being a companion. I think it's just like it's not a robot at this time, but it could like be put into a robot, right? But so special education law is 20 years old idea, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. It has to be reauthorized at some point. It's not on the front burner for the current administration, and I don't know if it'd be on the front burner for the next administration, but so you have this technology that's out there before Facebook and Gmail and iPads and smartphones. So no one was thinking about, like, what if a student with a disability has a robotic companion that's with them, a dog, that's, like this Boston Dynamic thing, and it's there, and it's there to has to do tasks. So maybe it can stand up and open a door. It can carry their backpack and books. It can monitor them. So if they're unstable or something, it can help to balance them if they're going to faint or fall. I mean, there's all the things that are kind of trained into service animals could be trained into AI type robotic, quote unquote, animals or whatever it could be. I think that's fascinating. And again, I don't think it's that far down the road. I think having this conversation 10 years ago with people, they'd be like, yeah, I'll never see that in my lifetime. And now I'm like, I can imagine that in 3 years. I could imagine somewhere this will first happen. And then, does it also become kind of ubiquitous in 10 years? Does it become where you have your home robot, right? Your Jetsons type thing. And if you do, like, what does it do? Which is really interesting stuff. Like, what is this? Does it cook? Does it clean? But there's a shift toward, is it talking to you? Is there some kind of discussional component to it where it's some synthetic dialogue? I don't know. But I think it's much closer to us than what people want to acknowledge. And I don't know what that means, but I'm going to throw it out there for my students. It'll be a fun assignment. Like, will be a fun in class. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a case study, but in really for them, I'm old, they are young. A lot of them, as far as like career wise, right? So they've got 20 years probably ahead of them, at least in their career. This stuff will actually come to fruition. So it's kind of exciting to talk about that. Well, folks, a few things here. One is, if you're still around here, do not hesitate at all to to get the velocity of information and right here and leave a review on Amazon or School of Airs and leave a review on Amazon or Google Books or wherever you want to leave a review. Available in paperback and Kindle audiobook. So, all right, I'm going to take us out here with a couple commercials and our outros. So, everybody out there, have a terrific day. I hope the weather's been okay by you. Like I said, we had the one night we had like 4 tornado warnings. There were like 102 warnings, which was pretty crazy. It's Misty Mrs. Wayne. She's saying, I've got it. Awesome. So yeah, it was June 22nd. I think there were like 104 active warnings in southern Wisconsin. I took a screenshot and I shared it. We were okay where I live. We had a lot of rain, but like we didn't have storm damage. But areas around us got hit pretty bad. So we can tell where the water level is because there's down the hill, there's a vacant lot, which will never be built on because there's electrical wires that go above it. And then it's also kind of designated as a green space. And that lot is largely submersed right now. And that's all just ground level water coming up. So, but I'm at least like 80 to 100 feet higher than that up on the top of my sandy hill here. So I'm okay. But I'm looking at that saying, yeah, that the water's not soaking in because that is the ground level of the water right now. So, and that's where the mosquitoes are. Gosh, silly mosquitoes. I don't know if you have to smash that like button, but you should consider School of Airs. Definitely. And if you want to do a super chat, I think I only need about $98 for my next payout. There's no obligation there. This is Misty Mrs. Wayne. I got to get that banner off of there. Okay. Misty Mrs. Wayne is saying, we have had dry, humid days here with temps in the 90s. Hardly any rain. Wow. So we haven't had anything kind of close to that. It's lower 80s. And we actually had some really cold days, like, 68, 70 and windy. It's been more humid. And we haven't had rain for like 4 days, we had 22 out of 30 days in June it rained. So now we've been a little bit without rain. So I'm hoping if this stays, the mosquitoes will die out. And if we did this is the longest my lawn has been like fully green, no watering, no nothing. So yeah, temps in the 90s, hardly any rain, humid. So actually I'm not a big fan of humidity, but it doesn't deter me from being outside. And like when I did the concrete stuff, like you have to have some humidity for that to really work. And it's actually nice detailing cars, which I love doing. I detailed my daughter's car yesterday. The mosquitoes sucked, but the detailing was nice. When the humidity's a little higher, detailing is a little easier. Things don't dry quite as fast on the car. So you're not dealing with the race to get the water off the car after you're done. I usually do 2 full washes of the car. And then when you're waxing, you've got a little more time because the humidity allows it to set up a little bit slower. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to head to bed because I'm tired. And this has been kind of like it's a lot of stuff today with all of the different stuff. So it's Zippy. Oh my goodness, as I'm just getting out here. Look at this Zippy here. This guy is all into intellectual property. That guy, Zippy, he loves intellectual property. Look at that. So we can replay it. So I don't have like a good snack to go to right now. I don't have any chips left or anything like that. So kind of the well is dry for like a late night snack. Sardines are okay, but not like really, really late at night. I love sardines, but it's not the last thing I want to eat before I go to bed. Yeah, it's been a long day, says Misty. Mrs. Wayne. Ron fell asleep 10 minutes ago. That gosh darn Ron Wayne. The Kentucky Batman needs his rest. If they flash the bat signal, he needs to be out there. Ron Wayne, also known as the Kentucky Batman. All right, everybody. The 2 commercials, and then we're out of here. I appreciate all of you. It seems like the system worked well. And as I said, I'm running off of the new router and just the new updated charter equipment right now. And things seem to be like just much better. There's weird entropy. Like you don't realize how bad things have kind of gradually gotten until suddenly you're just like, hey, I don't have any internet. And then my phone, no dial tone. And it's like, yep, that doesn't work anymore. So, all right, everybody.
As chaos erupts, torrents of conflicting yet urgent messages gush from media outlets. What is the magnitude of the incident, and what should people do to protect themselves? Dr. David Perrodin clarifies human behavior during days, weeks, months, or even years of chaos. Reporter James David Dixon of the Detroit News proclaims, "The velocity of information is an education in the way people react and adapt to change. Never has it been more important to sift facts and stories for truth and meaning. The velocity of information will teach you how people have done it in history, in the modern day, and even in prison. There are teachable moments on every page." Buy The Velocity of Information, Human Thinking During Chaotic Times. Available from your favorite bookstore or online retailer. A must-read for parents, teachers, and taxpayers. Dr. David Perrodin has written the most honest book about the $3 billion school safety industrial complex. Attorney James Sibley proclaims, "A brave demonstration of speaking truth to power. School of Errors rips the lid off the billion-dollar school safety industry." Using real-world examples of successful responses in desperate situations, David contrasts the expensive window dressings pitched to panic parents with the inexpensive and effective approaches proven to actually work. Read this book before you let your school waste another precious dollar on meaningless safety theater. Buy the international bestseller School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America, now at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Pew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no, my cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday, Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast. Turn left at 90. Maintain 4,800 to establish an approach. Engine 5, dispatch. Pockets of fire all around.
Holy shit, a ghost. Do you mind moving out of the way? You're blocking the TV.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man.
It's okay.